medically we were told that it wouldn't bother us.
It
that
would just give you a
diesel.
headache, and it was
Yeah.
not like gasoline fumes. It would
Right.
it would just give you a minor headache, and I used to pop more aspirins than I care to even talk about. Go home with a headache, and my wife would think that I would go home smelling like the depot, and she just couldn't believe it. She said, "Well, were you taking a bath in this stuff?" I said, "No, I'm just walking through the depot or driving the bus." And it's, you don't, like I said, a big part of it too is I couldn't smell it as badly because I smoked back up until 1991 when I gave it up. Once I stopped smoking, my sense of smell got much better, and I was able to really, I'd stand on a bus to get it, and I'd know there was fumes. So that made a big difference. Whereas my wife never smoked, and she could smell it right away. And it's one reason you had fumes in the buses, too, that nobody mentioned. If they had work on the bus in the engine compartment, I watched them one day when they took the back seat off, there would be maybe, I don't know if it's asbestos or whatever, but a layer there to prevent the fumes from going in. They can never get that back in. Once they took that off on any bus, the manufacturer had it in right, and there's a big case right there. A lot of fumes came in that way. They came in through the heat. I would turn the heat on and get fumes, and it would make you sick.
You know, a good example of that, I don't know if UConn's still the same, but I was up there last year and it was still the same. They might have done something with it now. When the winter is on and they're running the heat in the depot and the blowers are working upstairs for the heat, you can actually sit up there and die from it because
Right, sucking the fumes from down
the
below.
diesel fume is coming up through the vents and it's blowing out. And I don't know, it's still the same, I imagine it is. Because up to last year, that's all you were breathing. Because it's like, looking, if you were ever in L.A., sometimes now even New York is that way. You'll go downstairs, you see that haze, that's all you see. Sometimes you can't even see the top of the bus. The fumes and everything is so bad, the haze is in the garage.
Well, what about the film on the inside of the windshield?
Yeah,
Oh,
the same
forget
thing.
it.
Inside,
Forget it.
well, that's because of what Danny said. They have
Right.
an asbestos filter that goes over that back seat. And most of the time, the first time you rip it out, they never get it back right. And through no fault of their own, because it just won't fit right again.
It's like a seal.
Or if it's ripped, it's never replaced or nothing.
Right.
It's never done, and it's all coming out. People sometimes couldn't sit in the back seat. It was that bad.
I almost had a few accidents
Of
because
course.
of the haze on the windshield, especially if it rained.
There's no.
You couldn't tell if it was outside or inside. You take a rag and you wipe it, and then you knew where it was. And
Some of the older buses, they had that tray in the back, in the back of the bus, and you had like a tray, and it would be all full of diesel oil, and it's only from the fumes coming into the bus.
The rest of the dirt.
That again comes back to why we're having so many problems today. Why Danny's having his problems, Benny's having his, Stanley's having his. He had to go out, same reason. I had to go out. I mean, I was actually forced out because of my heart, but my back was the same as Danny's. A herniated disc. I have a herniated disc in my neck now, and it's all caused from, believe it or not, driving. I drove 28 years, and I drove most of them 28 years.
Well, let me ask you this. My impression is that most people who drive buses, after about 20 years, they have bad backs. I mean,
oh yeah,
Definitely.
that's when
I
mine
have
really
I have
started
a bad
hurting.
back and a bad neck, just like Joe and just like Danny.
There ain't a guy in this job hasn't got a bad back from our buses. I don't care who it is. Even today with these new buses, it's.
Well, there's
I hear the
supposedly
drivers
an
complaining.
improvement with the seats and
Yeah.
all, but
Yeah, but still, the seat is supposed to cushion you. It don't cushion you. Go boom, it bounce
Yeah.
hits. Well, when I drove, when they put the new seats in.
How about when the
It's
old
not
buses,
a
when you
cushion.
had to put the transfers to hold the seat up?
oh yeah, definitely. I had a seat fall on me when I was driving along Arden Avenue on a school trip, and that's when I first found out my back. And that was 20 years ago. I couldn't work for 6 days. They put me out. That's when UConn first opened up, and the light duty they gave me was to suck the money out of the bus, which meant bending over,
gave
and that
me
was
that
worse.
too, yeah.
That was worse.
Yeah,
so in
gave
other
me
words,
that.
just so the people understand, every bus that came in, you had to use a vacuum.
Right, I had to
bend
walk
over.
up 2 or 3 steps and
Right.
bend over, and I begged to go back to work because that was hurting me even more.
Right.
I mean, I was a little bit younger then. I was only in my late 30s,
Right.
and I recuperated from it, but it just wore on and on. It took them from 1980 to 1997 when I retired, and the back just got worse and worse and worse. In the last couple of years, I think I made it to the retirement because you have to work. You have to feed your family. Once you retire and you can relax and go out and get another job and do whatever you want to do, I couldn't even do that. I had to quit the job that I got, which was picking up the in between what I was missing. Like on I got a job as a school aide. I couldn't even separate two kids who were fighting. I'm talking about 6, 7-year-old kids because the back hurt and I was losing their strength because of leukemia.
So now, what about medication? Now, Dan, you retired 9 years ago. No, I'm
No,
sorry. You retired. You retired 2.5
years
years ago.
Right.
Right. These guys are the old timers. Sorry.
Well, you know going in what you're going to lose, but you really don't think it's a big deal because I was 50, and I planned on working and hopefully get something where I'd get a drug plan, which I did do. I worked for the Board of Education, and I was a part-time worker with full-time benefits, which was great. And I was on the maintenance program, which you send away, you get 90-day drugs for $5, which it was just picked up right where I left off because we had that on our job. And right after that is when I had to quit because I couldn't sit and watch the boys' room, which was part of the job as the school aide in between the morning breakfast and the lunch to keep the kids from tearing up the place. That was your assignment.
Right.
And I couldn't sit because of the back. I had every couple of minutes I had to get up and walk, and I couldn't even do that job.
Now, this is something I don't think most people watching our show are aware of. That you're a retired transit worker. You worked for 25 years. You have no drug plan.
No.
None whatsoever.
The co-payment from the union, we have the card from, I forget
The
what
discount
it is.
card.
The
Discount,
discount
right.
card, and I think it's only like A&P accepts it, and
Right.
they give you, if like one drug I have, it sells for $44 a month, they give it to me for $35 and change. They take about $9 off. But basically, I'm paying full price. And the drugs that I was getting $60 a year on the maintenance, I'm now paying over $700 a year just for them. And these are just standard blood pressure, thyroid pill, and a water pill.
And that's true until you're 65. You have no drug plan whatsoever.
Right.
So no matter what happens, no matter how sick
Right.
you get, you have to find a way to pay for your own drugs.
Right, which is why it hurt not being able to work because I had taken that into consideration when I retired. Just not to kill myself, just to do something other than stay home and annoy my wife.
Because you couldn't drive a bus anymore.
No,
Right.
I actually tried that for a week, and I couldn't do it. It was a school bus for the yellow buses for cerebral palsy, and they hurt worse than ours.
And you guys, do you have the same situation?
Same.
Well, when you're 65, you start getting drugs. So, but in between, what do you do?
You pay
You
for
pay for them. You have to pay for them.
Okay. And in the time now, Stanley, you retired 9 years.
Right.
And Joe, you retired about 9 years. Your pension, yours hasn't gone up at all.
No, none at all.
And Joe, yours went up how much?
Mine went up $17 last year.
Last year, $17 a month.
Yeah.
So essentially, you guys are living on an income based on
Fixed
10 years
income,
ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And every year it gets worse, plus you have this
Well,
other
everything
problem.
is worse.
So what do you think ought to be done about that?
You got to try to get something done.
Mhm.
Well,
Kind of a cost of living.
We know
increase,
you're
or-
working on it now. You're working on cost of livings up in New York for the union on the pensions and all that. But I think what has to get done is we need a better drug and medical plan for retirees between 50 and when they go on Medicare. I'm going to tell you, I was off 2 years where I had to pay for my own drugs before I went on Medicare because I had the heart problems. But I was lucky enough to have my wife working in my wife's company. She worked for Carmel Richmond. They have a drug plan. And thank God they picked it up, or otherwise it would have cost me. I take 9 pills a day, and 3 of them I take twice a day. So the cost is astronomical. Thank God that it was picked up by them. Otherwise, I would have been in trouble until I went on Medicare. But I think that's what we have to go after for our membership. Now, we lost the HIP in New Jersey. Guys had to get out of there and go into other plans, but we definitely got to get better plans because people think that when you retire from, like you said before, the New York City